On the night of April 4th, 1991, in Clinton, Missouri, Angela Hammond was abducted from a payphone while talking to her fiancé, Rob Schaefer. She has never been seen or heard from again. Angela Marie Hammond was born on February 9th, 1971, to her loving parents, Chris and Marcia Hammond. Angie had a baby brother named Lauren. For the first 4 years, the family lived in Kansas City, but soon relocated to Clinton, Missouri, where Marcia's parents, Lloyd and Elizabeth Young, lived. Sadly, over time, their marriage fell apart, which resulted in Marcia moving 20 miles away to an isolated farm in the country in Montrose, Missouri, and Chris traveling back to Olathe, Kansas, where he later remarried. Despite the unfortunate circumstances, Angela and Lauren grew up in a happy and stable environment, where their parents were very much active in their lives and made sure that they were loved and taken care of. As time went on, Clinton, Missouri became Angela's home. She cherished her family and friends. Kyla Ingerman was her best friend and described Angie as an energetic and intelligent woman who knew how to have fun. There was never a dull moment with her. In November of 1990, a 19-year-old Angie met Rob Schaefer, an 18-year-old high school star athlete who wanted to join the military. The two quickly fell in love. The following year, in January of 1991, she announced to Rob that she was pregnant. Rob was thrilled by the news and quickly proposed. Angie happily accepted. The newly engaged couple soon moved in together at a rented trailer home and started planning ahead for their new journey in life together. Rob still had plans to follow through with enlisting in the military later that summer, while Angie was working at Union State Bank as a night processor and taking college courses in Central Missouri State University, which was 30 miles away in Warrensburg, Missouri. Angela and Rob's relationship continued to blossom, and they were both accepted and wanted into each other's families. Both the Schaefers and Hammond's families were eagerly awaiting the marriage and the birth of the new grandbaby. Angie and Rob were very much in love and looking forward to their life together. Clinton, Missouri was a small town with a population being less than 8,000 people. Most were farmers, factory workers, or they owned a small business. Teenagers cruised around town square for fun on the weekends and hung out in the parking lot of the local grocery store. It was the type of town where people waved to each other as they walked, people met up for coffee in the morning at the local diner, and when high school football season started, the community gathered together on Friday nights to support their hometown team. Life was going to be great for these two. The police station was only 2 blocks away, and violent crime was unheard of. This naive community was about to be shattered to its core. On the unusually warm spring evening of Thursday, April 4th, 1991, Angela was accompanied by her fiancé at her mother's house for a family barbecue. The night was blissful, fun, and relaxing. By 9 p.m., Robert and Angela headed back to Clinton so Rob could be at his mother's house to babysit his younger brother, Justin. Angela dropped Rob off and waved goodbye as she drove away. She was going to spend some time with her best friend, Kyla. Angela and Rob would meet up later in the evening in town after a few hours. At 11:15 p.m., Kyla and Angela said their goodbyes, and each other went their separate ways. Angela decided to stop at a payphone on the corner of 210 South 2nd Street, which was just 7 blocks from where Rob was. It's where the Food Barn store parking lot was situated. She didn't own a home phone, and she wanted to let him know she was going home to soak in a bubble bath. She was exhausted. The two talked for about 30 minutes when Angela noticed a green pickup truck with a man inside circling the block. Angela told Rob about the truck, even giving him a description of both the truck and the man because Angie began to feel uneasy. Moments later, the truck stopped. The man got out and went to the empty phone booth next to Angela. Seconds later, he returned to his truck and took out a flashlight. He began to wave it around as if he were searching for something on the ground. Angela asked the man if he needed to use the phone, to which he replied no, telling her she could finish her call. All of a sudden, Rob heard a blood-curdling scream. Rob dropped the phone as the scream had horrified him and chilled him to the bone. He quickly jumped in his vehicle and rushed to where he thought she was. On his way to Angela, a similar truck to which Angie had described sped past him with a woman struggling with the driver and screaming his name for help. He quickly put his vehicle in reverse and made a sharp U-turn to follow the truck. The pursuit continued for about 2 miles before Rob's transmission gave out when he made a right turn, stalling the vehicle in the middle of the road as the truck carrying his beloved Angela sped out of view. Rob had no choice but to walk back to town. Luckily, a passing car picked him up, where he asked to be taken to the police station so he could notify them of what had just happened. He arrived at the station just a little past midnight. Rob told the police that Angela had described the man as being filthy. He was wearing overalls, a dark baseball cap, eyeglasses, and had a full beard with a mustache. The truck he was driving was a late model 60 or early 70 green Ford F-150 with a white top. The left side front fender was damaged, and there was a mural of a fish jumping out of water on the back window. A composite sketch of the man was created, although most people didn't think it looked like the man that Angela had described to Rob. At first, the police were skeptical of Rob's story. They thought it was too contrived and convenient. However, as they began their investigation, they discovered Rob's vehicle in the middle of the road, undrivable, and Angela's car abandoned at the shopping center parking lot with her purse still inside. Detective Damon Parsons notified Angela's mom, and she frantically called Angela's dad to deliver the devastating news. Chris promptly made the trip from Clinton to Clinton and stayed several weeks to try and help find his daughter. For the first week of the investigation, Rob was considered the prime suspect in Angela's disappearance. But after he passed a polygraph, and 2 witnesses came forward claiming to see the same truck as Rob had described, he was ruled out. As police continued rounding up friends and family for questioning and additional details, they shifted their focus to Angela's ex-boyfriend, 17-year-old Bill Barker. There were rumors in town that Bill was actually the father of Angela's baby, but he denied these allegations, and after they looked further into things, he was no longer considered a suspect. The community of Clinton rallied together, distributing missing persons flyers all throughout the town, plastering the flyers on local storefront windows, diners, and truck stops. Over 250 volunteers, including friends, family, and police, conducted air and ground searches. They scoured the entire town of Clinton looking for Angela. Water wells, creek beds, old country roads, barns, fields, and abandoned buildings were heavily searched with no luck. 11 days after the Clinton Police Department contacted the Missouri Rural Crime Scene Squad seeking help with the investigation, and as a result, 25 police officers from 15 neighboring counties happily assisted. The Missouri Highway Patrol also looked through their database of all registered vehicles. A list of 1,600 potential pickup trucks matching what Angela's kidnapper was possibly driving was compiled and sought out for new suspects. But the extensive search proved fruitless. Police were at a loss for words, perplexed as to how a small-town crime wasn't providing evidence and answers needed to solve this disappearance. They started to consider the possibility that Angela's abduction could be connected to 2 similar disappearances that occurred within an 80-mile radius months earlier, in January and February of 1991. On Saturday, January 19, 1991, in Max Creek, Missouri, 42-year-old Trudy Darby was working the night shift at the local K&D convenience store. At approximately 10 p.m., Trudy was in the process of closing the store when she noticed 3 guys lingering around outside. This made her nervous, so she called her son, Waylon Derby, asking him to come by. Waylon immediately left and arrived at the store 10 minutes later, but his mother was nowhere to be found. 2 days later, on January 21, 1991, Trudy's nude body was discovered 15 miles away in Little Niangua River. She'd been shot twice in the head by a .38 caliber pistol. 1 month later, on Wednesday, February 27, 1991, another similar incident occurred 80 miles away in Nevada, Missouri. Cheryl Ann Kenny, a 30-year-old wife and mother of 2, was closing the Quality convenience store located on Business 71 Highway. It was 10:17 p.m. and slow, so she decided to close early. She made her way to the parking lot and her white Chevy, never to be seen or heard from again. 3 years later, in the summer of 1994, the case in the abduction and murder of Trudy Darby was solved. The perpetrators were 15-year-old Jesse Rush and his half-brother Marvin Chaney. They were arrested after Jesse visited Kansas City and bragged to multiple friends about killing her. A few months later, on December 24, 1994, Trudy's father, Wilbert Belcher, passed away at 69. Before perishing, he expressed his utmost gratitude for being alive long enough to have the resolution and justice he desperately sought after for 3 years. 6 years following, on November 21, 2000, Trudy's mother, Betty Jean Thompson Belcher, passed away at 74 years old. While Jesse was in jail awaiting trial, he became acquainted with several inmates, one of whom was Edward Thomas, whom he befriended because he believed he was a lawyer that could help him lessen his charges of abduction and murder. With his misguided faith, Jesse wrote 13 letters to Thomas that incriminated him further with Darby's murder and also suggested that he and Chaney are behind many more audacious, unsolved crimes. 3 years later, in April 1997, Jesse Rush and Marvin Chaney were sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Rush was transported to South Central Correctional Facility in Licking, Missouri, and Chaney was imprisoned at the Maximum Security Potosi Correctional Center in Mineral Point, Missouri. In September of 2017, Chaney passed away at the age of 56 due to natural causes. Regrettably, Angela's disappearance went stagnant for years. The police had ruled out Jesse Rush and Marvin Chaney as suspects in Angela's disappearance and couldn't locate any hard evidence linking them to Cheryl's vanishing either. In April 2009, new information was brought forth by the Clinton Police Department. They provided a statement to the media claiming they have new evidence in the case, particularly of DNA nature, due to the advancement of technology and forensic science, but they never elaborated fully as to what they unearthed. Since then, very little updates have surfaced. 27 years have passed from when Angela disappeared, and lack of answers has continued to plague the family and friends of Angela's. Nonetheless, they had to go on with their lives. The Hammond family still pursues justice and closure with a relentless passion and make sure Angela's memory isn't forgotten. They still remain in contact with Rob and consider him a part of the family.